No, sorry, I don't know.
Pettifer,
Pettifer.
Pettifer.
Pettifer. I see Bergen here. And, oh yeah, and then I'll give you a mention, dear.
Thank you.
I'll call you admin officer, yeah. So legal officer. Don't know if I'm following this one, isn't it?
Yeah, apologies, Hannah hasn't had a chance to check it, so it's one I took
It's,
from
yeah,
that
yeah.
code.
I should just go on.
Hope it's okay.
Have a chair at the back then. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're okay to start. Yes. Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to apologise that we were delayed, but it followed on from another meeting that did go on a little bit longer than anticipated. So I apologise for keeping you waiting for that. First of all, I'll go around the room and introduce everybody that's here in the room, and maybe you could do the same if that's okay. I'm Councillor Joy Can, and I'm chairing this side of things today, along with my colleagues, Councillor Neil Denton and Councillor Mark Hayward Booth. On the other side of the room, we've got our legal advisor, Hannah Pettifer, our licensing officer, Phil Fitzsimmons. Yep. Our licensing officer, and our admin officer for today is Ariana. So that's how we start the meeting with. Okay, so I don't know if you'd like to just.
Yeah, I'm Roger Abbott. I live at Thornton, very close to the field we're talking about.
Right, a resident in the area.
The residents in the area. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Matthew Fleeton, so I'm the owner of Silver Vineyard, so it's my occupation.
Afternoon, I'm Duncan Tilney, a solicitor instructed by Mr. and Mrs. Taylor, who've made representations but can't be here today to speak to the committee.
And Mr. and Mrs. Taylor are residents in the area.
They own the neighbouring property.
Lovely, thank you. Right, so as I start the meeting, a little bit later, maybe we'll run through the agenda. Obviously, I've been appointed chair, and we've run through everything on that. Are there any apologies for absence?
No, Chair.
No, okay, thank you. Any items brought forward by the chairman? I have none. Any declarations of interest?
I've not received any unless any move now, Chair.
Okay. And to agree the agenda between part A and part B. Agree with,
There's no part B.
there's no part B, so
Part
we'll
A.
agree with part A. Lovely. Thank you. Now item 5 is to pass over and ask for our legal advisor to summarise
Chair,
process.
do you deal with number 4 and
Oh, sorry.
think officer to its formal requirements.
Oh, sorry. Yes, item 4, ask licensing officer if formal requirements have been met.
Yes, Chair, they have.
I have. Thank you. Sorry about that. Right, on to item 5, ask legal advisor to summarise the process, please.
So good afternoon, everyone. So it literally is a process of the licensing officer presenting his report, the applicant or his legal representation presents their case. The committee members ask questions. The applicant then can call witnesses if he so requires. Then the members would question those witnesses if required. Allow persons making their representations to make their case. So it's Mr. Abbott and then Mr. Tilney. And the members ask those questions and the licensing officer then sums up. We ask the applicant or his solicitor to sum up. Ask those making representations to sum up. The committee would then formally adjourn to advise, to take legal advice. Applicant and officers requested to leave the meeting during that consideration time. And during the decision process, if the members decide to grant, they will confirm the terms. If they decide to refuse, they'll provide reasons. The clerk will invite the attendees to rejoin the meeting, and the clerk will read the proposed decision to the parties present. The members will then take a vote on that decision, and then the hearing will be closed. Does anybody have any questions about the procedure? Thank you.
Thank you. Item 6, I'd like to ask the licensing officer to present the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. As previously mentioned, my name is Noel Burke. I'm the licensing officer. I'm the officer who's pretty much managed this application from its initial application through to where we are today, and I've also prepared the report. Just to briefly take you through the report, the purpose of today is to present the application for a full grant of a alcohol licence for premises Saunton Vineyard Limited, Broad Lane, Braunton, EX331JF, and there is a copy of that application which is Appendix A. The applicant, Mr. Fleeton, is here today to make his views known. The application itself is to permit the supply of alcohol on and off the premises. And specifically, the application has requested the supply of alcohol on and off the premises Monday through to Sunday from 9 in the morning to 22:30, 10 at night. The hours are open to the public are specifically Monday through to Sunday 9 till 11 at night. The application provides further clarity in relation to further regulated activity. It talks about provisions of films and it specifies in the application not applicable. Provision of live music, again, within the application, it says non-applicable. Provision of recorded music, non-applicable. And late night refreshments, non-applicable. So that's the provision of food after 11 o'clock in the evening. We have received two representations, appendices B and C, and those are both relevant representations, and they're specifically in relation to the two licensing objectives of the prevention of public nuisance and public safety. Within the application, you will also note that there is a plan, an aerial plan of the premises to give you an idea of the scale of the field and the proposed application. And there's also a specific plan within the field as to where the location of buildings and various items are. Within the relevant representations and as part of the process, we send out the application to regulatory authorities, of which one of those is North Devon Planning. They have responded, and we have two appendices F and G, which I'll come on to, specifically in relation to the application. And also Devon and Cornwall Police have responded with proposed conditions agreed with the applicant. And I personally visited with an officer from Devon and Cornwall Police to look at the premises. And he then, as a result of that visit, provided conditions to the applicant. And it's a two-way process whereby communicate and have a set agreed of proposed conditions for the site. The two representations are from Paul and Patricia Taylor, who are the closest residents to the field for which the proposed application is, and that's on Appendix B. And they've expressed concerns with regard to the licence and objectives of prevention of public nuisance. I won't go into the finer detail, but essentially they're concerned that the application may provide an increase in public nuisance to their premises. The other relevant representation is from Mr. Abbott, who is present here today, and he expresses concerns in relation to public nuisance and public safety. And again, the appendix is C and is there for you to see. As mentioned, with all applications, this was sent to the planners, and initially the planning responded Appendix G, stating there may be a planning application necessary to support the proposed activity on that land. They then subsequently sent another appendix, which is attached again, in which, having visited the site, they said there's permissible planning and no planning application will be necessary. You've got Appendix H in there, which is a copy of the advertised tours from Saunton Vineyard, and that displays all of the available tours of the site. I would like to also table two further documents which have received after the submission and publication of the report. One is a document from Mr. Tilney, who's present here today, in which he's offered some concessions on behalf of the Taylors, in which he states they would be willing to accept and remove their objections if there were certain conditions applied to the licence. And if you're happy, Chair, I will share these today and table those for Oriana's benefit. I keep a copy. Thank you. And the other document I've made reference to, again, it's as a result of information provided to us after the publication of the report, and we were made aware that there was camping advertised at the location, and again, as a result of that, planners were consulted with, and they provided a response to that advertisement in relation to what their views would be from a planning perspective. And again, I'd like to table this document, please.
Thank you.
And the final appendix I've not made mention of is photographs, which is Appendix C, and they were photographs obtained by me of the surrounding land, roads, and also access in and out of Saunton Vineyard, and also a view from the back of the premises for which the Taylors currently have a residential property. And the relevance of those photographs was to provide further clarity to you, specifically in relation to some of the representations raised by both parties who are making representations today. And I thought that would be useful to enable you to to see some of the issues they may have raised as a result of their representation. That in summary is the report. And whilst I've got a huge amount of documentation, I certainly don't propose to go into a huge amount of detail as we have those people make representations on the application again. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Just one question on the Devon Cornwall, the police, their report. Was that included in any of the appendices?
I do apologise. Yeah, it is included. So the agreed conditions between the applicants and Devon Cornwall Police is an appendix, and it is appendix D. Yeah, page 37.
Okay, yes, I got it, sorry. Okay, we're happy to move on. Obviously, we've got a bit of reading. We might have to do that, you know,
Yeah.
when we go into recess, really to you know, clear our heads of it and not break away from the hearing now to do it, if that's okay with everybody. So thank you very much. Item 7 now is to ask the applicant or a solicitor, if you have one, but it looks like it's the applicant himself that's going to make a presentation to the hearing. So yeah.
Middle.
I think it's all to do with technology. It's all to do with being seen and recorded and recorded. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the time for seeing me today. So I'm the owner of Saunton Vineyard. A little bit of background into me, what the plan is for the vineyard. So I bought the land in 2018. And I planted the vineyard in 2019. So basically, everything's done sourced locally. Planted 2 different varieties of grape, both sort of low intervention. So my plan is to make, or what I'm making is natural wines, basically, in Devon. I'm actually the only winery in North Devon, which is pretty cool. And I'm trying to keep it as humble as possible. So the vision is really, and my background is sustainability. So alongside this business, I'm actually in the process of setting up a sustainability charity called Live Life Love International. And I've supported Plastic Free North Devon since 2019, so since not before I was even making any income from the business. So my vision around what I'm looking to do with the vineyard is basically all about sustainability. So my focus for the charity is within human, social and economic sustainability. And basically the vineyard encompasses the environmental aspects, both with its location, but also in the way that I am protecting it as an asset and community, etc. So basically, it was my second harvest last year. First harvest, I got 300 bottles of wine off. I operated under temporary event notices successfully. So we did tours. I think I was limited to, better than me, the licensing team. I think it was 26 days last year under the temporary events notice due to COVID, and it's been brought back to 21 days this year. So with 300 bottles, I managed to sell out. My wine is priced at a premium, and that is to encourage the rights of the people on site. So I priced my still wine at £28 a bottle, my pet nat, which is semi-sparkling, at £32 a bottle, and my sparkling is at £45 a bottle.
What's the second one, sorry?
Sorry, it's called pet nat. So it's Petulant Naturel in France, or Col Fondo in Italian. It's basically my most natural wine, but it's like a semi-sparkling. And that is £32 a bottle, and I sell it for £8.50 a glass on site. Basically what I was running last year under the temporary event notice without any complaints at all from anyone, including Mr. and Mrs. Taylor, and that is £32 a bottle, and I sell it for £8.50 a glass on site. Basically what I was running last year under the temporary event notice without any complaints at all from anyone, including Mr. and Mrs. Taylor. In fact, they were fully supportive of it and came on, actually mentioned to me in passing that it's nice to see people on the site. So there was basically, yes, we were doing the tours and they were finishing up around about 5 o'clock, and we were open for self-guided tours the rest of the day. And the reality is it's I've got an area with seating, and then I have a barn which is acting as a winery. For this year, I've got 1,800 bottles of wine to sell. The plan is to basically, it's for 28 days, is to basically set up in the broader area that is highlighted on the plan. So those 2 red areas, knowing that does come under permitted development rights, 28 days. However, the barn is not actually an agricultural building. I think there's been some confusion there in both of the representations, but it's actually a flexible commercial building, and I'm entitled to run it as a cafe, restaurant, and within the curtilage of that area for unlimited days during the year. So the intention, I've partnered with a local chef who's going to be supporting me for 3 to 4 days a week in providing food to accompany the food. So the plan is basically to run tours and also sell wine to accompany the food around the curtilage of the barn area, and then for 28 days extend that to offer season coverage. Apologies for the representation, also the email regarding from Duncan Tilney. I only received this yesterday. I had contacted Paul directly as soon as the application went in. As soon as I saw his representation, I received a response. I only got this email yesterday, at which time I was also advised that the meeting was going ahead anyway, because Mr. Abbott was attending to go to Peel. I don't agree to this, to what is suggested here. And then there's quite a bit of history, and I'll go into that in a minute regarding the first representation. So the 20, I can't. It would basically close my business if we were to restrict it to 28 days, because I recognise that there's a permitted development, but because what I'm doing is it's a flexible commercial property, and I'm looking to sell the wine both from the cellar door, so for people coming on site and buying bottles, but also from the curtilage of the barn with food, as well as the tours. So that is just, it's too prohibitive. And actually, if I look at the sales of my wine last year, 30% were done on tours, and 70% were done either on people picking up wine or from people having a drink. I think the last person probably left the site around about 9 o'clock. I'm very reasonable. Obviously, I've put a broad scope on there from a licensing perspective, but my business plan is that I need, if I was to restrict it to only being able to sell 250 bottles this year, would have 1,500 bottles left over. I wouldn't be able to get rid of. And more importantly, I would only be able to generate £7,000 worth of income versus £50,000 that I'm looking to generate.
If you mind, I just clarify?
Sure.
Is it the problem with the cut-off date of time, 6 o'clock? Is that what the problem is, or is it something else?
No, the cut is both actually. So the 28 days is too restrictive. I'm looking to open up. I'm looking for customers to. The reason I'm looking to open from 9 is because I'm going to open as a cafe and a shop and a restaurant, as well as the tours. So people will be able to come on site, buy a bottle of wine, and then leave the premises with a bottle of wine and drink it off site. They will also be able to come on site through one of the scheduled tours, which is on the website. What hasn't been illustrated in that extract is actually all of the other activities I'm looking to do, which is the drop-ins for wines that people can come and try the wine by the glass, or self-guided tours that happen in the evenings. But what I would say is that there's been 2 representations. There has been no representations from any permanent residents within Lob. So I met with Mr. Abbott. We had a nice meeting on site, and actually my ethos in the conversation that we had lined up perfectly with Roger's ethos, which is about protecting, the area as an asset. And I'm very much in line with that. I would be against all of the principles and the other stuff that I'm looking to do without that. There was no news since last year. So most of as a demographic of the people that are coming on site, it was around about 50% people were locals. And I'm within a 20-minute walk of Braunton. I'm within a 5-minute walk of Lob Fields campsite. I've got a booking of 18 people next week from a neighbour, Karen, who actually bought the land off. So there's holiday places that are actually feeding stuff in. I'm meeting with Saunton Chalet last week. I'm meeting. My business colleague met with. I'm trying to think of the name. I can't remember the name of the house, but there's a lot of properties locally that are interested in actually helping, supporting us as a business, as well as other businesses. So everything that I procure is local, even from the seaweed that I put on the vines, which I'm supporting a local seaweed farmer that's just set up in Clovelly, coffee ground in Bellator. So it's all about that, doing a whole lot of work for charity, not just my own charity, but supporting other charities, supporting the army at Chivener. There is a plan to put the wine in local shops, restaurants, bars, and I'll be working with those potential people this year to basically get a product that's fit for them. So my ethos is all about natural wines. In order to put it into somewhere like a pub chain, it's about working with them and finding out actually what they want as a customer or what their customers want. Yes, no representations from anyone else in Lob. The 28-day restriction would actually close my business down. I wouldn't be able to sell. I would have to find a different way of selling that wine, and whether that would be partnering with other. Well, I think what I would like. There are other ways of doing it. I could sell my wine under temporary event notices from other people that are supporting me off the site, and then people could drink it on the site with the restaurant. But it seems a bit counterintuitive. What I would like to do is come up with actually a way of working with the police and council and fostering what I think is, and what the local community think is something that we should be doing. Growing out a new industry, which is pretty cool. My vision for sustainability within the wine industry in this area is to basically partner with local farmers and winemakers, and then go to the consumer. So if we were to take Saunton Sands or the Brent Group Hotel, I'm not saying I'm having a conversation with them, but my vision to them would be, how can we build a product for you? So how can you choose a farmer, choose a winemaker, and we basically build a sustainable product around you. So I don't really have any plans to develop the site much more beyond what I'm proposing. But my vision is not to put a big house in it. My vision is not to develop the building. It's actually to keep it as humble as possible, because that's what people like. People that I noticed last year wanted to come onto the vineyard and actually see how wine was produced 200-300 years ago, which is grown by one person as naturally as possible And I make the wine in a shed that is 5 by 6 meters, doesn't have any electricity. It's just pretty cool. So that's sort of my vision. The circumstances that actually brought me to Devon are actually quite upsetting. And the only reason I mention it is because there is what I consider to be a very deliberate misrepresentation regarding wanting it to return to a sheep field in Paul and Patricia's representation. In actual fact, I bought the land off a farmer who there's a massive conflict. There's been a massive conflict between both the previous owner of the land and me. Without wanting to go into too much detail, I've had to report 85. Basically, it's so I used to work in banking in London, and I then set up a technology company when I came out of banking, which was a distributed ledger technology company, and it would have disrupted 2 businesses, and one very powerful person who sits at the top of the vineyard industry and sits in the House of Lords and is a billionaire, and basically he undermined me socially and financially to the degree that I nearly took my own life. And the reason this is all relevant is that I had to report 85 people to the police for all of this sort of harassment. So I've paired all of my life experiences back into what I'm going to do now at the vineyard and around sustainability. And it's sort of, that frames who I am, what my ethos is, and that's not really going to change. But what I need is to get this over the line this year, and the premises license is going to give me the ability to do that. I currently work part-time at the Thatch in Croyd, so I work on the bar, so I've got, obviously I'm used to managing a high volume of customers on a daily basis. I got my personal license. The demographic of the customers that came on site last year was I would say completely different demographic. It was the right sort of customers, as in there was no trouble at all. It was either family orientated, or it was people walking in, no one was drinking too much. There was no misconduct, there was no littering, and everything is consumed on site or taken away in a bottle. So there's really no chance of any littering, really. And also there's 2 entrances to the field. So basically customers driving at the top and out of the bottom. The parking's at the bottom, which is probably 150 metres away from Paul and Patricia's house. Last year that they were there only for 6 weeks of the year. Which is, I realise that's not necessarily a big argument on my side, but it's weighted. If we weight that against actually the other residents of Lobb, where there's been no complaints at all or representations at all, I think it's significant. And the reason I can only assume the reason that people haven't put in representations from the rest of Lobb is that they understand, they know me pretty well, and they understand, actually what I'm trying to achieve.
Thank you.
So I realise I waffled on a bit.
No, that's okay. I just thought, I didn't want to stop you midstream, and now it's for us to, put any questions to you, but I just wanted to make sure that you actually finish your presentation.
The only other thing I was going to say is that in relation to the camping, I went back to Marley on the camping. I'm actually licensed under a company called Wild with Consent, which is a bit like a caravan and camping club, but dissimilar. Basically, what the arrangement I have with them is that they can have exclusivity. The site, so one camper van can go in and have an exclusive setup on the site, and they pay me, and through their license, I get 60 days camping, and that's outside of the 28 days.
Thank you. Right, item 8 now is allow the applicant, if you've got any witnesses, which I presume that there aren't, brought with you, no, didn't brought anybody to support your
No,
evidence.
upstairs.
That's all right. Thank you. It's on my list, so I'm just running through. So now the next item is to allow any of the members to ask. So if I go to Councillor Hayward,
Yes.
if you have a question,
Thank you.
please fire it.
It's so very interesting to hear your vision. I'm still not quite clear though, sorry about this, the question of opening in the evening, because is it your business model that you would need to open until 10 o'clock?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, I have scheduled tours at 12:30, 2 and 3:30, and each of those tours run for an hour and a half. Now, the 12:30 tour isn't very popular because people tend not to drink too early. Makes sense. And I tried to run one at 11 last year, and never know. So really, there's two tours if you'd like that are busy or popular. I run those for 10 people at a time, and they are the main ones are at 2 and 3:30. Now, the reason I need a license from 9 until 10 and 11 is because I'm actually opening up as a cafe, shop, and a restaurant as well. So most of the wine sales done, the way the vineyards survive is that they have to, you get a better margin through selling it direct to consumer. So I sell my bottles. I'm getting a lot of inquiries for tours, tastings, and people just wanted to come and buy a wine. I'm having to turn down at the moment, literally non-stop. So what the premises license will allow me to do is be able to sell wine direct to the consumer that come onto my site and take the bottles away. It will also enable me to carry on with the activity I was doing last year, which represented about 70% of my sales, which is that people stick around after a tour and just have a nice glass of wine watching the sunset. So I don't have any structure for them to sit under. It's going to be, it's either 28 days on benches outside, and it's going to be self-policed because I don't have any means to be able to sit in the warmth. They naturally will want to leave as soon as the sunsets happen because it gets cold. Or outside of the 28 days, it will be in the curtilage of the bar. So when Marlia came down from the planning, she made 2 points. She made there's no problem with the horse box, and I can use that as a cafe bar for 28 days outside of the curtilage of the bar. But also because the barn is basically flexible commercial and the curtilage, I'm allowed to do whatever activities from their perspective outside of that whenever. And that doesn't, there's no restriction there. The reality is that with my chef, so the chef that I've chosen, used to be a chef of Richard Branson and the Royal Family, so got really good top end stuff. We're doing basically some posh barbecues to accompany the food. And the reason is that people wanted to stick around last year and have some food. I think it's important from a licensing objective that food complements the wine, almost to counteract any nuisance. There's no takeaways being done. There's no packaging. Everything. There's zero waste. Because we're focused on sustainability, so everything will be consumed and then composted on site. And it is our vision that there would be up to 24 people in the curtilage of the barn area. Outside of that 28-day period.
Thank you very much. Could I just ask about the lighting, if I may, Chair?
Yes.
How do people see their way? How would there be lighting where they're drinking till 11 at night?
So at the moment we don't have any lighting. Last year we had some festoon lighting up around the seating area. Again, there was no issues or complaints raised, I would imagine it would, if we were to put lighting up, it would follow that. But the reality is, the lighting that we had on last year, there were really no customers around to see it because it was solar, and by the time it had come on, they were cold and wanted to leave the site anyway, so it wasn't causing
I'm just wondering why you need that 11 PM if people are leaving early. It's the light pollution issue that's one of the things that sort of jumps out at me with your, strong interest in sustainability.
So I'd be more than happy to restrict that to something that, I just picked it broad, but if that is a concern, then yeah, we could. Last year, people were making their own way by 9 o'clock. So I think we could, for last drink, there's no reason why we could make a last drink at 9 and then customers to leave the site by 9:30, something of that ilk would be reasonable. Would allow me to maintain my business. And it could even be at the beginning, wines from 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going to have people sitting outside drinking. It's going to be for people that want to come into the shop and buy bottle and take it away in the same way that they would go, to a local delicatessen. So we could even restrict it at the front end and say that, up until 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, there's to be no wine consumed on the premises, but then between the hours of 11 in the morning or 12 in the morning to 9:30, then
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Denton.
Thanks, Sharon. I know how difficult it is to stand in front or sit in front of a load of people to understand that back in respect. So, I've got a few questions. One of them is obviously we've got say 20 to 30 people.
Mhm.
Where's the parking?
So there's parking at the top in a herringbone. I think we can probably get about 8 cars in. But actually I've got 2 entrances to the field. The second entrance is down the bottom, and I've probably got parking if I wanted to for 15 to 20 cars. Not that I would envisage it being anywhere near that requirement. So the reason for moving it down to the bottom is to limit the nuisance to anyone really. But actually by opening up the second entrance, I've also reduced the problem that already existed on that road. I've diluted the problem of the additional traffic, which is minimal, by making it closer to the main road, so less on the trunk road. But also what I've done is I've created a passing spot, and actually,
Because you just said that, has it been mentioned about traffic problems at the top?
not as a result of me, but when I've been speaking to the local residents, the major issue actually, ironically, was that so Patricia and Paul had recently developed their property. So we should also mention that before Paul and Patricia bought the land and developed it, I went through them with details about what I was planning to do with my business, getting people onto the land, sell the wine, do the activities that we're discussing now, and they raised no concerns. The pass they closed off. There was a massive, a very big, probably a 2-bay passing point at their property, which wasn't their driveway, but was a passing point for people. Yeah, and actually what they did with when they developed their house is they stopped that. So they basically enclosed that, and so they actually compounded the problem on that road and actually eased it by creating a second entrance down the bottom where people can actually pass. So that actually I've improved it, and I don't think the volume of traffic we're talking about, the amount of people I'm looking to get on site, is very small numbers. I think I've put on my application 100 people. The reality is that it's a 50 person site, and I want to keep it minimal. It's all about delivering quality service to the customers at a high price point, and it's all about an experience. So we're not going to be. It's about people coming on site, enjoying nature, drinking natural wine, speaking to the winemaker that's grown it, made it with as low intervention as possible.
You said you work at the Thatch?
Yeah.
That's quite a busy pub. How far is that to walk from you?
So I walk it in 50, so over the winter, I walked it every day and night. On the way back, it's 50 minutes.
And so you live at this site then?
No, so I don't, so I've lived it a bit of a, I've had a bit of a bad life, should we say? I'm a bit of a nomad at the moment. I'm actually currently living in Croyd. I'm renting a property in Croyd. But I've lived in Lob for a bit. I've lived in Braunton.
So then you commute from Lob to your property, driving there?
Walk. Typically I'll try to walk where I can. So the property is a 20-minute walk from Braunton. It's one of the businesses we're looking to work with is Saunton Chalet, which is a 20-minute walk. So they're looking to push customers our way, and then they can walk there and back. And then also from Croyd, we're working with influencers on some of the social media platforms to encourage people to actually walk to the vineyard.
And that sounds good. I mean, because you stated earlier that you was concerned that the only 28 days wouldn't run your business enough. But then within that, you've stated that you're looking to sell to bars and restaurants and things out of season. So that could help you with that 28 days potentially.
Well, the problem with that is you lose a predicted margin. So at the moment, I would, with a £28 bottle of wine, I'm probably, once I pay duty and that, I'm probably making £23 a bottle. So £45 bottle of wine, I'm probably making around about £35 a bottle. As soon as I start selling it to, let's just say, Thatch market, I would probably be operating at around about £1/3 grand. And I would also be changing my ethos because they would want a filtered wine. And all my stuff is natural on site, so it's unfiltered. So it's about they then become a customer of mine and I build it up for them, but I'm changing my model at that point. So and actually that's not sustainable from my perspective. So the restriction of 3 days just kills the business, right? It's really that simple because and I understand I've been my whole life has been undermined by an old boys club, who I can connect back to Paul and Patricia, and all they've been doing is actually trying to undermine my business. This I'm viewing, if we can't agree to something, it's just an extension of that. And I don't need to go through the details now, but this is very serious stuff, which actually landed me, in hospital twice.
Yeah. Sorry, you have to excuse me. I've been writing loads of stuff down. And taking notes. The guided tours you spoke about, and then I read your average. It seemed like your average tour. I did write it down. Can't find it in a second. On the list, it was saying from about 1 o'clock till.
So you're 12:30.
5 o'clock is the average, wasn't it? Yeah, 1 till 5-ish.
Yeah.
And
then I do a self-guided tour after that, so people can basically come on and buy a flight of wines, which is the same wines they would sample.
So they would just freely walk about them.
And they would just guide themselves around. And then some people just stop and have a bottle of wine and drink. And 70% of my wine sales are done.
So how do you see that progressing? Say we're talking, say, up to your place in 2 years' time.
Yep.
Where would you see it in 2 years?
As in volume of wine sold, or?
Yeah, and how busy it might be in the business, because you're talking about obviously building the restaurant there or having a restaurant there full time.
Yeah, so restaurants.
That'd be 300. Is that you're looking at having it every day of the week, every day of the year?
So the reality is it's a site that is suitable from April until end of September. Just being realistic, in North Devon it's the stereotypical window. So yeah, I envisage, and actually the way sort of played out this, I'd imagine there would be no catering on site until June, and then that's finishing the end of September.
So that would be in one of those buildings,
It would be in the curtilage.
the triangle.
Yep.
The triangle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And outside of the 28-day rule, so that
And the extra sort of bolted on or side to side with it.
No. So it's basically what the 28-day rule is separate. So we got
Yeah.
without
Your intention would be then to run them in you
to
know,
be run
in tandem or
Yeah, it's
bolted
one-
on the end.
during involved on the SLA.
Well, 60 plus 28.
Oh no, it'd be run it in tandem. So basically it would be I'd basically run it as a cafe, restaurant, a cafe bistro, whatever it's, it's probably small, which would have in the curtilage of the barn, I can get 24 people. So 4 tables, basically 4 picnic tables around the curtilage of the barn, and we can sell unrestricted. So out of that 28 days, we can sell unrestricted wine with the right premises license to customers.
Is it? Sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
Is it just going to be wine, or are you selling other alcohol? Is it just your product, or are you going to be offering lagers or bottles of beers? Or?
I would like to be able to offer other local products just to meet customers' demands, but if we think that is an issue, a concern, I'm quite competitive. My major concern is not being able to sell my wine. So I just from a sustainability perspective, it's about selling my wine, but also I'm keen to support.
If you had, I mean, your plan, which is between, say, you're saying about 50 to 100 people.
But that would be including the 28 days. So
yeah, per day. This is what you say.
Yeah.
If you had, say, half of that, or take a mean from that, say, 75 people potentially in a restaurant. What about bathroom facilities and things like that? Because you're off grid, aren't you?
So I've got a toilet.
Is that on grid?
Yeah. So I've
Plumbed in.
got a compost loo.
Right. Okay.
So the planners have been around and
Yeah.
no issue with that.
That's why I'm just trying to.
Yeah, that's fine. So I've got a compost loo. I've got mains water. Electrics is running off a generator for now, but I can put solar in.
So all the waste material from the restaurant can go into the.
Yeah, it's going to be zero waste. So I'm compost now.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. Nothing new there. No, I'm not trying to grill you. Don't
No,
worry.
that's fine.
You mentioned about the camping
Yep.
as well, and about events, and obviously it's advertised, as
Yep.
you stated. What's the term? What do you intend to do with that? Is that going to be?
So I did this last year as well, actually.
Yeah.
So it's basically, we call it wild camping. So again, it's back to basic camping. There's a compost loo. We keep it. It's a small parcel of land at the bottom of the vineyard, which is where our sort of nature area is. And it's predominantly, again, attracting the right people. It's about, it's just back to, we call it wild camping with benefits. The benefits being caffeine and the wine inside.
Because things can expand quite rapidly, can't they? So if you said, again, in 5 years' time, I came to your place, where would you see it?
So
as far as camping and events go?
Yeah, so for me, it's about just being able to sustain myself. So the vision of the vineyard is being able to sustain myself. And for that, and the reason I'm having to sustain myself is because I got taken out by this network of people that have actually made it impossible for me to get a job. And so for me, it's about providing for my 3 boys and me, and that's it. So I'm not greedy, and the rest of the work will go into my charity. So for me, I've got, when the rest of the vineyard is, so currently I've got half the vineyard fruiting. The rest of the vineyard should be fruiting half of it this year, half of it next year, in which case I'll have roughly 4,000 bottles on a good year. And that will be enough to basically do the same activities as I'm proposing here. I'm not looking to grow the business anymore. This is what I'm setting up and discussing here is basically me setting the boundaries of where I think I need to get to for my own sustainability. Any other sales can be done off-site, as in, I'm setting up partnerships with some of the other restaurants and doing a collaboration with, a couple of restaurants, farm shops, that sort of thing. So I will be looking to sell maybe 2,500 bottles of wine on site, which is marginally about the same as I'm looking to do this year.
Sorry, how many?
About 2,500 bottles on site, and then the rest will go off site. And then I'll be looking and I've got no more land, so it's literally, I'll be doing the same activity. So
you won't be looking to expand to another field or?
no, so my vision on expanding is really sustainability model, and for me that is more about working with other, basically, if you like, helping other farmers make their own wine.
Creating your own competition.
I don't mind, I want competition. It's healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, yeah, but I'm not, sorry. Right, your turn.
Well, I think my colleagues may have answered. I was ticking off all the list and things that I was obviously going to, put to you, and I think that we've gone through most of it. Thank you very much. Right, long-term plan, obviously listening to your answers, does seem to be a little bit, I'm going to do a bit of camping, I'm going to do a bit of a restaurant, I'm going to do, which started off obviously with the wine and the vineyard and everything else, which I think is, a wonderful project. It's using agricultural land, which is poor, but the long-term plan seems to be we're going off in several directions.
No, it's the same as last. Actually, the long-term plan is the same as last year. The only thing that's changed is I'm moving from temporary event notices to premises license. So last year I did camping, I did a cafe, and the only food I did on site was pre-packaged food. So the only thing I'm changing is making the pre-packaged, getting an external caterer in to replace the pre-packaged food. My vision has always been the same. Actually, it's those
with obviously not the facilities there at the moment to cater. I mean, I have had got a few concerns, and I'd like to take it back to the licensing application, which is about the times, and I'm still very concerned that it's all early in the morning, 9 o'clock until late at night. And I understand that there's only a small window there, but I'm really finding it difficult to sort of get my head around why you would need it so early and so late.
Yeah, sure.
9 o'clock is really, a very early time of the morning to be able to be. If it was for purchasing,
it would be.
That just so that might be something that we look at, and there again at the end of the evening it is quite late. So I'm just bringing it back to that point because, as I said, I think my colleagues have covered long-term plan and the access issue. I think it's all been covered. And I see from your application you've not applied for any music, any film, anything else. So but that could still be sort of in your long-term plan, and that is, I think, one of the things that we're seeing, appearing.
Sure.
The add-ons to the actual licensing, but I'd like to keep it back to the licensing hours that you're requesting.
Yep.
And I find that they are quite long, a long day. But I understand that you've only got so many days.
Yep.
But I still feel that is quite a long. But obviously we'll listen to what everybody else has got to say. I don't know if anybody else.
Yeah. Within say, future applications potentially. You haven't mentioned anything about sort of bands or things like that at all, so you're not intending to have any sort of live music or anything like that at all at any time?
Would that be, I haven't made any plans as yet, but is that a?
It's just a question.
Yeah.
Just-
Yeah. It's just obviously on your application, you've ticked not applicable that you're not requesting that at the
Okay.
moment. And this is just about the selling and, you know, and.
Yeah, well, I guess if I did consider that, I would come back and make a reapplication. I would put in for a temporary event notice, I would imagine.
Thank you. So I've got next on my agenda item 13, is that right, or am I skipping any longer?
Never.
Yes, thank you. Unless members, you have any specific questions that you want to bring up?
No, I think between us, and I was obviously clocking up sort of, you know, some of the responses to questions. I think that, you know, we've probably exhausted the, you know, the questions that we need to answer. So I would say we move on from
Yeah,
that.
so invite, perhaps Mr. Tilney to.
Yes, to make his representation. Yes, sorry, on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Taylor. Thank you.
Now, thank you for your time, and I shall try to pick up on a few bits and pieces that elected members have raised and the applicants give some responses to. Set the scene. Licensing officers already made the points really that the licensing regime exists. It overlays the planning regime because of the acceptance that licensed activities have the potential to have harm, societal harm. And if that wasn't true, there wouldn't be a need for licensing. And if we weren't, you know, looking at the edges, there wouldn't be a need to consider conditions. Context is important. What might be acceptable in a town centre location may not be acceptable elsewhere. And that goes to accessibility, the availability of, you know, you can walk. I don't think there are any pavements. I don't think I would want to walk along there having driven along it, but you know, you're elected members, you know the circumstances better. The site is outside the AONB, now referred to as a national landscape, which is immediately adjacent to it. And so if you look at it on the plan, all of the land to the west as it approaches the coast is AONB, the land to the north above the lane is AONB, and as it goes round to the, effectively to the east and lob at the AONB. So the site will be seen within the context of that, and it will be experienced within the context of an area which has been designated for its natural beauty, tranquility, all the other qualities in the management plan that you've published. And so it relevant that you can see it from one part of the AONB as you look across the rest of it. So if you go from Lob looking across to the coast, it then sits there in the middle of a sort of scallop out of the AONB. There seems to be a little bit of confusion, possibly misunderstanding in terms of days and times and what's been asked for. You've asked some questions, the applicant's given some answers. But I just wanted to refer back to the application that's been made, because that's what's before you to determine. So we've had some numbers given. We've had 50-person maximum at the site. We've had 25 to 30 people mentioned. We've had 15 to 20 cars mentioned. Within the application, in section, comes off the bottom L, capacity limited to 100. No one's mentioned 100. all the numbers that you've been mentioning, was it?
We already mentioned 50 to 100. Yeah. I'll let that down.
100.
Yeah.
But all the talk has been about selling the wine produced at the site. That's not what the license is being sought for. Just an alcohol license. Premises would ensure age verification policy in place, alcohol to be sold in closed container in can't read that word. Beer, cider in half pint, wine, 125 ml, 175, 250, spirits, 25 millilitres and 50 millilitres. This is just an alcohol license. So all the conversation has been about, the applicant's ability to be able to maximise the revenue obtained by direct selling methods of his wine produced on his site to his customers. And to an extent that is what it is. But the reality, as I perceive it, is that there is a 365 days a year right to use those premises and their curtilage for a bar, restaurant, bistro, call it what you like. And a license is being sought to sell alcohol, whatever description, regardless of whether it's produced on the site or not. It just appears to me there'll be an opportunity for the applicant to come back and address these points and explore it. It appears to me that all of the sort of push is about wine being sold, sustainable production, and these things, and making that a viable vineyard business. This is an application for an alcohol license for a bistro in the field. And no one's really been talking about that. If it is just for selling the wine from the site, then a limit on a restriction on it, selling the wine produced on site. The 28-day permitted development right can apply across the entirety of the site. There's no sort of geographic boundary restriction on when that can apply. The 60-day permitted development right, which overlapped with but now becomes a separate right, is 60 days for a maximum of 50 pitches every single year, subject to some prior notification and provision of toilets. Licensing will confirm this, but music's been deregulated, providing a few than 500 people there. And the 28 days can include camping as well as the 60 days used for camping if the camping is there as part of the festival. And so I suppose it's a note of caution of what it is that you are being asked to grant a license for versus the potential reality of what could happen on this site, regardless of the stated intentions, because nothing that the applicant states to you is binding. He will only be bound by the terms of any license that you grant and any restrictions imposed by the planning system. And that doesn't, I'm not suggesting that he's being disingenuous. I'm just saying that, people are trying to make a living. They make a living however the best they can. They go where the market drives them to go. And that could be to the very limit of what is permitted through planning and licensing, which is potentially a very different scenario to the one that you've been exploring. I know, two of you have said, it's been explored. What would that look like in 2 years and 5 years? What would that look like in 2 years and 5 years? The answers are what the applicant perhaps would like it to look like. But a more pertinent question for a licensing authority is what potentially could it look like under the terms of the license being sought. It is a balancing act that you're being invited to do. I'm here to sort of represent one view of the public interest in this. The applicant is entitled to present, their view of the business that they want to run, and you're left with the task of trying to sort out where perhaps equity sits in between those two views. It's in the sort of effectively the concessionary document that I sent. And I'm sorry that came at such a late stage for people not to have an opportunity to look at it in time and reflect on it. But again, tours finishing at 15:30, want to sell stuff to people, but want to stay open 365 days a year until 11 o'clock at night. They seem inconsistent to me. Thank you very much. I'm obviously happy to answer any questions.
I think that what you said, that we can see where we have said things and recognise that we have covered quite a few things that you have brought up as well. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Nothing from me.
Chair, just ask the members to perhaps address Mr. Tilney about the applicant's comments regarding I believe that he said the Old Boys Club, or some historical issues that he believes Mr. and Mrs. Taylor could have been implicated in. Perhaps Mr. Tilney could provide the committee with something about that.
I know absolutely nothing about it. I would caution, and perhaps legal services would caution members in exploring, absent my clients, in recorded medium, whether this is broadcast or not, anything that may end up as being defamatory against my clients. I'm not going to comment any further on it. I really don't.
Be careful what we say.
No, I'm not saying be careful. It's not an area that perhaps you want to get into to the extent that it's not relevant to the decision that you're going to make. People could end up saying things that might be unfortunate.
That doesn't sound.
I don't know any of the history, so I don't know any of the accusations that are being made against my client. I don't know if any of them are true, but I'm also not convinced that they're necessarily relevant to whether true or not. Whether
That's
your
right.
determination.
That's right, judgment.
Yeah. Legal services asked me to come.
Yes,
Thank you.
I just wanted
I'm caught between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if there was any contribution regarding that.
No, I absolutely no knowledge of that whatsoever. I was instructed.
If it was only if you
12 days.
wanted to come back on it.
No, I have no knowledge of those matters that are being discussed.
Okay.
That's all.
Well, thanks.
No, I think that's fine. Thank you. Thanks very much. Is Mr. Abbott, is it?
Well then.
Sorry, yes. Sorry, I did jot these names down and then I'm looking at.
Terrible thing with names, okay.
Thank you for inviting me to pass comment on this. Unlike what it says in the agenda, I actually live at Thornton, not at Lobb, but I think it's a minor point. And I make frequent use of Broad Lane and also the lane along the top past Stirling, just to always go to North Bucklands, which is the obvious route to go for me. And I have no objection whatsoever to the growing of grapes, making of wine, or even marketing of wine. That's not really my worry. I think that all seems like an agricultural pursuit, which I'm happy with. My concerns are really twofold. One, the present agricultural land has very little in the way of facilities to sell alcohol, and if allowed, it could develop into a recreational bar and cafe area to the detriment of the locality in general. And we've heard today additionally camping and restaurant facilities, which it's a quiet area, and it just seems it's going to totally change it. Also, my second point, which I'll come to in a minute, is about access to the vineyard via single track lanes. As has been mentioned, the application for the license to sell alcohol on site or off site is this remarkably long period, 9 o'clock till 2300. I'm also very concerned about that. I noticed the applicant Matthew has somewhere in the middle of all this. He works at the pub in Croyd. I'm not quite sure how this works out very brilliantly, or whether someone else is manning the vineyard. I'm not clear about this business on page 11 of the agenda. Item 7.4, the planning officer says that sales and tours be limited to 28 days a year and thus will be considered to be temporary use of the land and deemed acceptable. Item 7.5 on page 11 seems to support this, but by the time you look up the list of dates, which is on pages 49 to 51 of the agenda, it shows the extract from the website shows that it's open 75 days. Now that's a lot more than 28 to my mind. Perhaps I'm not understanding the rules of it. Although these days are only for about 1.5 hours a day, these tours, etc. And this only relates to the advertised tours and tastings. And if other personnel just arrive out of the blue, so they're not going to refuse to sell them. There seems to be a mismatch there, which I'm not grasping. And as has already been mentioned by Mr. Tilney, there's this business of selling all types of alcohol, which crops up on page 23 of the application, beer, cider, wine and spirits. So all this seems to be a substantial change in the agricultural use of the land and associated supposedly temporary incidental activities. And there's also, as some of these things like the horse box is considered by the planning people to be not require any permission because it's got wheels on, but that is essentially the cafe bit, and there's nothing specified to stop further vehicles, trailers, and whatever appearing. We've already heard about camper vans possibly being invited in. It's going to be a complete change of use of the area. The drainage facilities regarding composting, toilet and hand basin, these being provided, but where does the drainage go? And it goes into the ground, and there's a water course just down the edge of that field, running down the hill, and I'm not sure that's going to be adequate, particularly if we're going to be dealing with these possibly up to 100 people there. And also there's obviously going to be water generated from, washing glasses, hands, winemaking equipment. It all has to flow somewhere. And regarding accesses to the field, one from Fairlinch Lane and one from Broad Lane. I call it Fairlinch Lane, it's the east-west one, essentially running past Fairlinch Farm. Both gateways have been recently widened, yes. The one off Fairlinch Lane is very, very close to the junction with Broad Lane. That's on page 41 of the agenda. The lower photograph shows that, how close it is. And the latter, that is the one, the Broad Lane one, has very poor visibility and a very steep slope. It's the lower photograph on page 43. The lower on page 40 and the upper on page 41. Sorry to give you all these numbers. If you want to look at it up later, you can. It seems that if you emerge out of a steep slope down, you can't see very well to the side. A mirror has been put up in one of the bushes there, But I think that with people unfamiliar with the lie of the land, exiting from there is going to pose a risk. And I appreciate that the police have said they're satisfied with it, but obviously police and highways often have a different view on these things. And also going down Broad Lane onto a Salton Road, that is notoriously dodgy, that corner. Particularly if you want to turn right towards Salton, you cannot see the traffic coming. There is a sneaky way of doing it. You have to keep well to the left before you turn right, but who is going to know that if you're coming as a tourist? So I don't think it's a place to be encouraged significantly increased use. The people of Lobb know how to do it. So in summary, I don't think it's appropriate to grant an alcohol sales license without strict limit on the days and hours of operation and confirmation of adequate wastewater disposal. And my thoughts on all this, I have discussed with another nearby resident, as he mentioned, the owner of an adjoining field, and who said he would be happy to add his name to the objections of ours. I'm afraid we've got to the end of my spiel. Any questions on my thoughts?
Yeah, I'll start.
You haven't mentioned light issue.
I haven't.
Is that, I mean, you live in Staunton, is it a site that you can see clearly from where you are?
Well, we are in a fairly dark area, at least where I am, and it's my concern that there is a lot of extra light pollution. It's created sometimes by these newfangled houses being built with whopping great picture windows and radiating out light, and the less we have of it, the better, and particularly with if there were to be external light. You could imagine it, if I were developing developing a similar setup, I would probably have strings of fairy lights dotted around the place or something, but that I don't think is appropriate for this area. It's a dark area, and I don't think we should. Another aspect which I'm afraid I probably missed out on, Matthew was talking about the number of people walking from Salton towards Broad Lane and to his site.
Crawlton.
Sorry?
Sorry, Crawlton.
I thought you had some coming from what you called Salton Chalet.
Oh, but across the footpath, you know, in that half up the hill.
You're going up the hill first and then cutting it.
Yeah.
Sorry, my apologies. Go that way. Otherwise, there's always a danger. There's the windy bit of Salton Road is notoriously dangerous, no footpath or anything. But, if you can convince everyone to walk over the hill, it's fine.
I mentioned the blind access onto Saunton Road from Broad Lane, but isn't it the case that planning have no problems with this? I mean, you're local, that you know about this, but I don't think there's been any official problem with it. Has there?
It's been like it all my life.
What I mean is that you're concerned, but I don't think there's an official concern from planning on this issue.
Well, they haven't raised anything in this particular case. No. But normally, when it comes to access to places, if it were a planning application,
I
can see, I just didn't want to interrupt.
I think Mr. Evans just got there. If there's a planning application, they have an opportunity to comment. There isn't an associated planning application because of the way the planning situation is. Therefore, there isn't really a question that they're being asked, because they've been asked already and they've responded and said this is the lawfulness, it's the class R change to a class C use for the building, it's the 28 days permitted development rights, it's the 60-day permitted development rights.
Yeah.
Those aren't applications for planning permission to planning. Therefore, I don't think they've been asked specifically this question.
Thanks very much.
I think I'm sure he's right on that, because also if it were involving a planning application, highways would be one of the statutory consultees, and in this case, they aren't. Although the police have been asked to have a look at the highways, who are meant to be the experts on this, have not been asked.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Councillor Denton, is it regarding the licensing? Obviously, we're sort of, going off track a little bit.
Well, I think a lot of subjects we talk about are related to the whole decision. So I think that sometimes,
So could you just give us a little bit of advice? Mr. Abbott's representation is in packet, and we need to stick to what he originally said. He didn't raise lighting, he raised the access and other concerns, but he didn't raise lighting, so we do need to stick to his original representation.
okay, so,
Sorry, I didn't realise.
yes, that's right. So, yeah, so I have got one. So with the highways, I haven't seen the highways report because the highways,
On the statutory, they're not responsible authority under the Licensing Act.
no, that's what I was getting to.
Yeah,
So,
and, our solicitor said that if it'd been a planning application,
yeah,
they would be party to make in, but
that's right. So it's not really, so when we said about the police, they're not really involved at all with whether it's right or wrong for access and egress for driveways either, unfortunately. So,
Yes,
yeah, okay, so, sorry, I didn't quite get how far away you are from the site.
oh, I would take a guess. Do you know the lie of the land around there?
Yes,
Oh, good. You know what side of I live just a few yards past the golf club entrance,
all right.
if you know what I mean.
So how long would it take you to walk there?
Well, I wouldn't try to walk.
If you did.
If I walked along the road, I could probably be there in about quarter of an hour or so. No, 20 minutes.
Yeah,
20 minutes.
Yeah.
But I would
you wouldn't want to
go out of my way to avoid walking around that windy bit.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
deadly.
Yeah, that's okay, thank you.
I do drive the route quite frequently.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you, yeah, that's, thanks.
Right, just one from me, I think. At the moment, with the licensing in situ as it is, has that affected you at all within those hours? The shorter day, has it had any effect on sort of you at all?
Realistically, no, but my concern is that the expansion of hours and days of the year, so it becomes very much a tourist venue, or people going there for food,
And if that was the case, how would that affect you
it would me.
directly, indirectly, or?
Well, I wouldn't be able to see it from my garden, if that's what you were thinking, but I would, when driving up that way, if you find a large number of vehicles trying to come the other way, I mean, I don't think they teach reversing these days, so,
So yours would be more on the expansion of the business rather than the licensing then?
yes.
Yes.
The idea that if to merely, allow someone to take the wine and buy a bottle and get home in small numbers. But again, small numbers may not be what it's trying to do to build up a viable business. So I see a bit of a conflict there.
Lovely.
But I'm not sure that if you choose to put a business in possibly an unsuitable place, I don't think you should necessarily be encouraged to expand there. But it's something obviously that maybe disagreements on. Yeah.
Lovely, thank you.
Anything else?
No, we've.
Thank you very much for hearing me out.
Now I ask the licensing officer if you can sum up for us, please.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, it's a very contentious issue. Any application representations is very often, met with a real passionate response. I'd just like to offer a thank you to all parties, because that has been very conciliatory in the circumstances. So first of all, we've heard from the applicant, Matthew, who talked very passionately about his sustainability and a model for his business. I'd like to point out on the application on page 16 of the report, it does say, please give a general description of the premises, and it's talked about within that as a vineyard and winery. And there is a note as to what the expectations are within that field. Admittedly, the field's very small. It doesn't allow a great deal of room to elaborate too much, but it does actually say in the guidance on page 25 of the report, describe the premises, for example, type of premises, general situation, layout, and so on and so forth. So it is asking for a little bit more detail, I would suggest, than what we've got there. And it's only as a result of the work we're working with plans that we've established, actually, we're looking at more than a winery and a vineyard. We're actually looking at camping and more than the 28 days on which the plans went out and established that he could operate under. We have the additional 60 days for camping, and then as a result of identifying that there's a CAF proposed in July of this year, which was only disclosed as a result of looking on a website that we established, that actually the application now has moved towards an annual operation, and if a license is granted for those hours, then you pretty much have the sale of alcohol between those hours over the whole of the year. So whilst we talk about 28 days for tours and 60 days for camping, actually, if granted, we would have a license throughout the year for our premises, which eventually would probably be a restaurant stroke cafe. There's mention of the Live Music Act, and I think Mr. Tilney mentioned it's been deregulated. He's absolutely right. And on page 25, within the notes for guidance, it makes it quite clear if a license is granted, regardless of what times we were to consider putting on there. So if we were to condition and say, actually, we're unhappy with the license extending past 6 o'clock in the evening, because the Live Music Act has been deregulated in 2012 because live music was really struggling. They said, actually, if you're granted a license, an alcohol license, you can operate regardless of what conditions are put on that license, unless a review is considered, then you can operate between 8 in the morning and 11 at night, as long as there's less than 500 people in attendance. So that is a consideration for, I would suggest, Chair, for you today. The applicant has talked about waste facilities. The plan for last year is the same as this year, so he's moving from 10s to a grant of a full licence. A 10 is limited in its number, so it does restrict the amount of opportunity you have to operate. A full grant of a licence, as previously mentioned, will allow the applicant to operate throughout the whole of the year within that premises, i.e. the restaurant. So that is also a consideration. Let me talk about the alcohol sales. I think the applicant mentioned 30% sales on tours and 70% sales on walk-ons drop-in. So the majority of those sales may be throughout the evening when people are dropping in, as opposed to the tours, which are predominantly during the day and finish at 1700 hours. The applicant talks about his vision and is not to develop the site or building and keep it humble. If granted a licence, the concern always for the licensing authority is actually that licence is there forever. So whilst the applicant now may have a view as to what that looks like, if it were to change hands at any point, that licence would go with the sale of that land and may develop into something not proposed within the application. Mr. Tilney has talked about AONB and also what is acceptable in Barnsley may not be acceptable elsewhere. And within the Licensing Act, we talk about proportionality, and proportionality of conditions applied to the licence is very often driven by the environment of the area for which the application is made. So conditions necessary within the centre of Barnsley and for a nightclub and for a wet lead, i.e. just alcohol sales, may be very different than a field in the middle of Saunton. So that's the proportionality as to how we would suggest conditions to apply specifically for this application. And finally, Mr. Abbott has provided a rationale from his point of view as a resident who lives further towards Saunton, and talks about access and concerns in relation to the single track roads, and made reference to photographs, which will provide further clarity for you. And again, expresses concerns about the times of the proposed sales. Talks again about water and waste disposal, and there was reference made to highways, and as my colleague has mentioned, highways are not a regulatory authority, so we don't make them aware of this, and unless a planning application is made, neither will the planners make any reference whatsoever to highways, which is a source of frustration for us, but unfortunately that's the limitations we have to operate within. So you've heard, the applicants here on this, and you've heard the two representations, and it will be obviously determined by you as to how this application is granted. Thank you.
Thanks.
Right. Was there any other summing up from the applicant? Just a summing up, and then from the other two gentlemen that are here, and then. So just a quick.
Yeah, no, of course. So I guess my vision, what happened, what I did on the site last year was basically how I'm looking to continue this year, but just moving away from a temporary event notice onto something more permanent. The land itself is 2.8 acres. It's small, and actually, obviously the vineyard growing of the vines occupies a large amount of space. So I maximised what I could last year. So actually 3 weeks before I was due to go live on my vineyard, I got the insurance industry, the vineyard industry, is underwritten by 3 underwriters. They all pulled their insurance on me, and I had no insurance. And I was phoning up the brokers, and I got it's pending an FCA investigation, but they were suspicious of the circumstances. I had to go to the Salvation Army to put an insurance package together. And the reason I went with camping was because that was the only insurance package I could get. I couldn't even insure my own vineyard, and then I had to bring them back into under my vineyard. This is the lengths they went to. So I guess what I'm saying, so that's where the camping came from. But I guess what I'm saying is there is, I heard about the provision for camping. There's 50 possible pitches. The reality is my site's tiny. The camping, I did 4 pitches last year, and it would be 4 to 6 absolute maximum. And that feels like more of a planning question. The curtilage of the bar base and the size of the vineyard restricts what I'm looking to do. What I did last year to what I'm looking to do going forward anyway. It's not a case of me being disingenuous, it's just a case of reality. Just haven't mentioned around 75 days. I think there may be some confusion. I think it's 75 tours over 3 thirds a day, which would equate to roughly 25 days. Just on the list, so I think it's just the individual lines. But regarding the horse box, it's actually I'm using it as a winery, so it's an agricultural vehicle, and I'm processing the grapes in it as an extension to the barn, so that I can. And then for 28 days, I have the option to convert that into a cafe or winery, or operate with the curtilage of the barn. That's pretty much it, really. The concern regarding the cars, I think the bigger concern I think with that road is actually it's a rat race anyway, and people just gear their sat nav to circumvent the traffic in Braunton. I'd be quite keen if we could structure it in a way I could take that to a different council meeting and we could actually work to see if there's a way we can reroute the actual problem, which is not going to be the vineyard, it's actually people using that as a pass-through in the busy holiday periods. Again, my vision is literally just about sustaining myself and my family, and everything else I'll do will be charity related. As far as I get all the stuff you're saying regarding the area of outstanding natural beauty, I'm actually meeting with the Catholic Church on Friday because part of the charity I wanted to demotivate the people that were doing this to me and the way I was going to do that was basically gift the land away. And I've been looking at various things, you know, putting in my own charity, gifting it to the National Trust, or actually the people that supported me through this are the Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, and the Irish.
Do you want to take a minute and
Okay.
sure.
So for me, this is the stuff that's happened to me is brought me to a place where, this is sort of my focus now. In fact, the vineyard is just about sustainability. What I'm looking to do in the charity is going to be much bigger. And that's potentially why they didn't want me to get that bit between my teeth. But anyway, that's a sort of separate topic. So for me, I've sort of framed it as my intention. Those are my intentions. Making wine in North Devon, which I think is pretty cool. No one else is doing it. Growing grapes, making 10 different types of wine. It's all about getting people on site, meeting me, learning about the vineyard, learning about actually demystifying wine, making wine cool, because it's definitely not cool in the UK today. And sort of collaborating with the community, whether that's individuals that just want to come out somewhere different. Most of my customers are from Blaunton, and they just want to come somewhere they can sit and chill and be sort of just enjoy the view from the wine. So yeah, thank you.
Mr. Albert, no.
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. Susan, Yana, I think we adjourn now. Do we think so?
Everyone has finished summing up and there's no other contributions to be made at this stage, Chair. Yeah, I think it's appropriate for us to have an adjournment and the parties to leave while you deliberate.
Lovely, thank you. Thank you. Do you go over? Yeah, I think we just. So long time has been, you didn't have anything, did you? I'll get off the house sandwich. I had plenty.
You sat down here all day.
Yeah, especially now. Yes.
Ready to go.
Madam Chair.
So
I'm at the line.
Just ready, we're all back in the room, yes, yeah. Right, so I'll commence to move on to the next part of the procedure.
Just remind everybody that you are now being recorded again.
Thank you, Ellen.
Yes, forgot that. It's not been an easy process and it's obviously, been looked at very thoroughly by all parts, by us and by the other side of the table. So we do appreciate that and thank you very much. I'd now like to call upon our admin, our clerk, to read out the decision that we've come to at this hearing.
Okay, Chair, thank you. So the decision that members have come to is to grant the premises licence, but subject to conditions. There's conditions already, mandatory ones that have been, I believe, published with this that I won't read through, but the decision that's been reached upon by the council has been determined upon the hearing from the applicant and from Mr. Roger Abbott and Mr. Duncan Tilney, Stephen Scowen, legal representative, Mr. Paul and Bishop Taylor, that the grant of the premises licence is appropriate with the conditions included below. The focus of the Licensing Act 2003 and the licensing objectives are met, provided the applicant complies with the attached conditions and those that are mandatory conditions. The reasons for this are: A, the applicant wishes to increase, develop his business and include on and off sales of his own produce wine. Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003 aims to provide a regulatory framework for alcohol which reflects the needs of local communities and empowers local authorities to make and enforce decisions about the most appropriate strategies for the area. In consideration of this aspect, the committee considers that the conditions imposed are necessary to support all four licensing objectives: the prevention of crime, disorder, public safety and prevention of public nuisance and protection of children from harm. The impact of the development of the site has been a consideration as this is an agricultural field and there is a requirement to preserve the dynamic of the site. B, the later terminal time of 22-30 hours is not considered to be appropriate in view of the licensing objectives, and there are significant concerns regarding public safety due to the poor access and egress to the site. The applicant has not been able to demonstrate a requirement of a terminal hour later than 1 hour post the last wine tour, which is at 1700 hours, ending at 1300 hours. Hence the requirement for a dispersal policy to minimise annoyance, disturbance or nuisance to neighbours, residents of the area. The Council's Licensing Act 2003 Licensing Policy, January 2024, Section 3.4.2 states that public nuisance can include low-level nuisance affecting a few people living locally. In line with this decision to restrict the hours to last sale of wine at 2000 hours, the terminal hours believed to be justified so as to limit potential for public nuisance. C, whilst the resident population is not high in the area of this application, it is believed that public nuisance is likely to arise from it. This is an open air venue without noise attenuation measures from acoustic installation or fixed premises. D, the committee is concerned in respect of public nuisance that the site will increase the effects of lighting and noise if hours granted in line with the application were increased. Due to the nature of the site, lighting of the drinking area and area for safe access and egress is likely to be required. North Devon Council's Licensing Act 2003 Licensing Policy of January 2024, Section 3.4.4 states that measures to control light pollution will also require careful thought. Bright lighting outside premises, which is considered appropriate to prevent crime and disorder, may itself give rise to light for some neighbours. E, the committee has considered the reservations of the two objections from a public safety and nuisance perspective and consider that limitation of alcohol sales from the vineyard itself is appropriate to avoid any expansion to larger events, thus minimising detrimental environmental and licensing objectives. North Devon District Council's Licensing Act 2003 Licensing Policy of January 2024, Section 3.4.3 states that noise from people entering and leaving licensed premises, particularly late at night or in the early hours of the morning, can be a significant problem. Customers under the influence of alcohol are often less inhibited about their behaviour and may be unaware of the noise they are creating. As background noise levels are lower at night, any noise is more intrusive for residents trying to sleep. In recent months, the Licensing and Community Safety Committee has seen complaints and additionally significant representations in respect to the number of applications to grant or vary premises licences, which have given cause for significant concern in this coastal strip and in a rural area. Moreover, that the premises are located in the open air and without substantial acoustically insulated premises, in proximity to an AONB/natural landscape and in an area with low background noise and artificial light levels. The Council believes there is a careful need to balance the business plans and application with the licensing objectives, particularly public safety and nuisance. So in addition to the mandatory conditions that will be attached to this notice that I'm reading, to cover the crime and disorder, all staff engaged in licensable activity at the premises will receive training and information in relation to the following: The Challenge 25 scheme in operation at the premises, including the forms of identification that are acceptable, the hours and activities permitted by the premises licence issued under the Licensing Act 2003 and conditions attached to the licence, how to complete and maintain the refusal register in operation at the premises in relation to the sale of alcohol, recognising the signs of drunkenness, operating procedures for refusing service to any person who is drunk, underage, or appears to be underage, or appears to be making a proxy purchase. Action to be taken in the event of an emergency, including reporting an incident to the emergency services. Training shall be recorded in documentary form or electronically and shall be regularly refreshed at no later than 12-month intervals. Training records shall be made available for inspection and copying at reasonable times upon request from an authorised officer of the responsible authority. An incident log shall be kept and maintained in the premises, which will include a log of the following, including pertinent details such as incidents of disorder or of violence or anti-social nature, all crimes reported to the venue or by the venue to the police, all ejections of patrons, any visits by a responsible authority or emergency service. Records must be completed within 24 hours of any incident and will contain the time and date, the nature of the incident, the people involved, the actions taken, and details of the person responsible for the management of the premises at the time of the incident. The log should be kept for at least 12 months following the date of entry and be made available for inspection and copying upon request of an authorised officer of the responsible authority. The premises shall operate and maintain a comprehensive digital CCTV system to the satisfaction of the police and local authority. Consumption of alcohol on the premises shall cease at 2000 hours and all persons off-site by 2100 hours. To restrict alcohol sales to wine produced by Saunton Vineyard Limited on-site only. Wine in form produced on the premises should be served using non-disposable drinking vessels. Saunton Vineyard Limited does not provide any takeaway service or food or drink for immediate consumption, meaning an open bottle of wine except on site. Notwithstanding this condition, customers are permitted to take from the premises part-consumed and resealed bottles of wine supplied during their wine tasting experience. Public nuisance. Clear and legible notices shall be prominently displayed at the exit, requesting patrons to respect the needs of residents and visitors and to leave the vicinity as quickly and quietly as possible. No deliveries in relation to licensable activities to the premises should take place between 2000 hours and 0800 hours. A written dispersal policy shall be in place and implemented at the premises to move customers from the premises and the immediate vicinity in such a way as to cause the minimum disturbance or nuisance to neighbours. During the final hour of training, appropriate announcements will be made or images projected to remind patrons of the need to leave the premises quietly without causing annoyance, nuisance or disturbance to local residents, and to advise patrons of any taxi, free phone or collection arrangements available on the premises. The use of lighting in the wine tasting seating area shall cease at 2100 hours, except for health and safety or security reasons. Public safety, a logbook or recording system should be kept upon the premises in which shall be entered particulars of inspections made, those required to be made by statute and information compiled to comply with any public safety condition attached to the premises licence that requires the recording of such information. The logbook should be kept available for inspection when required by persons authorised by the Licensing Act 2003 or authorised legislation. No customers carrying open or sealed bottles, cans or other receptacles containing alcoholic liquor shall be admitted to the vineyard at any time that the premises are open to the public. And then under the protection of children from harm, there will be in place a written age verification policy in relation to the sale or supply of alcohol, which will specify a Challenge 25 proof of age requirement. This means that staff working at the premises must ask individuals who appear to be under 25 years of age attempting to purchase alcohol to produce identification. The only acceptable identification documents will be a photo driving licence, a passport, an identification card carrying a PASS hologram, or an MOD Form 90 ID card. Unless such identification is produced, the sale of alcohol must be refused. An alcohol sales refusal register or electronic register shall be kept at the premises and be maintained to include details of all alcohol sales refused. The register will include the date and time of the refusal, and the reason for the refusal, details of the person refusing the sale, description of the customer, any other relevant observations. The refusals register will remain available for inspection and copying on request of an authorised officer of any responsible authority. All entries must be made within 24 hours of the refusal. Appeal provisions, any person so specified in Schedule 5, Paragraph 2 of the Licence Act 2003 may appeal against the grant of this licence, including the imposition of any conditions, excluding those mentioned in sections 19, 20 and 21 2003 Act. Any such appeals must be commenced by notice of appeal given by the appellant to the Barnstaple Magistrates, Barnstaple Law Courts, Norfolk, Barnstaple, Devon, EH311DX, within the period of 21 days, beginning with the date of this notice. A premises licence and summary of it, together with the plan of the premises, will be sent out to this 21-day period if no notice of appeal has been received.
I can make sure that each of the parties have a copy of the decision notice, please.
To pass that out.
Very fine.
Are you okay with one copy to give to your respective members?
Thank you. I didn't know here, to be quite honest. Thanks for that.
I was going to ask one question, just.
Yes, is that all right for
Yeah.
myself or a legal
Do you need
officer
to
to
vote
take?
on that, Hannah?
Yeah, you need to vote. But well, do you want to ask a question
What
first?
I wanted to ask is, are there, so just so I understand, so is there any restriction on the 28th day?
No, it's for 365.
Okay, and my understanding is that, just so I'm clear, is that it's sort of, I'll read it for you, sorry.
We believe it's going to be self-limiting,
exactly,
in terms of seasonal and weather
Absolutely.
and venue.
Yeah, and then it's just so I'm clear, it's the last drinks to be sold at 8, with everyone off the premise by 9.
Yes.
Okay.
I think the other relevant point was wine only produced on.
Yeah, no, obviously.
Thank you. Obviously we take a vote on those, so I would propose that that is our decision. We want to second it, and all three in favour. I therefore close the hearing. Thank you all very much.
Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chat.